Hey, I'm Dee Davis, and this is the Rural Assembly and Daily Yonders Check on Your Neighbor. The neighbor we're checking on today is Rural Strategies Board member Robert Wisdom. Bob is an actor who's performed in dozens of films and television series, including The Wire, Ballers, The Alienist. I first met him when he moved to Whitesburg maybe 35 years ago to put on a conference called Media and Democracy.
The whole idea of media and democracy, we were going to try to define that landscape in a town of 1,500 people. 1,500 people who probably had, for the most part, a far more conservative take on media and democracy than what we were trying to brandish. But, we went back and forth to all the funders up in New York. We make those regular trips and we talked them into it. We were on the phone day and night across the country to bring folks in. I think that stupidity is a real good thing, because if we had thought about it, we'd have said that was like, the dumbest idea you could come up with. But in fact,
I know the sponsoring organization offered us $5,000 to do it. And, and then I don't think we got that till after it was over.
Right.
But I'll tell you one thing I learned from you that, I thought I was pretty clever. And we spent a lot of time doing things for this community, trying to create programs, trying to create different ways to enrich life here. And what I never understood was about letting other people help. They say that the first rule of politics is if you want a friend, let him do you a favor. The thing I couldn't figure out was we couldn't feed all those people. We couldn't put them up. We couldn't have a dance without the help of all these other people. And the thing that you brought with you from your experience, and I don't know whether that was from Washington, D.C. or Jamaica, but that whole idea of letting other people pitch in, it transformed my understanding of this town. I think it transformed our relationship in this town because people were waiting for you to ask. They wanted to make soup beans and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for you and your hoity-toity group, and right. I think I learned a good lesson that I needed.
Well, look, the list that I learned is still growing. I've often called this, it was one of the greatest years of my life, to be down there in Whitesburg and learned so much about a culture that from my place in Washington, D.C., I thought would have never accepted me. And I got taken in by a absolute full range of people, in the hollers down to the town. I remember Harold Martin taking me up to his trailer and with his wife, and how they taught me to make white biscuits and gravy with white gravy. And Harold took me out with drinking one night with him and his boys, which I wouldn't advise anybody to ever do, because there was one fellow there with a gun that didn't really like me being there, but Harold was my guardian angel. But it was all of these were the ingredients. My coming in contact with and being accepted by and being challenged by being a Black man in Eastern Kentucky in 1983. That feels like a long time ago now. That was another world, and here we are. When I look at it from this perspective, where we are right now, we were doing revolutionary work. and then it was the lifelong friendships.
I'm not sure exactly, but I think like one day I went to the movies and I went to some Dana Carvey movie, and all of a sudden you're in it. Was there a clean slate or something? You know, you were he lost his memory and you were a blind clarinet player.
Right, right. And I got it through a wrong number. This casting director she missed out by one digit and left a message on a buddy's on his voice machine. And I called him right after that. And he said, man, somebody left this long message looking for an actor. You did this stuff in London. And at that point, I had just been in LA for 2 weeks. And so he gave me the number. I called her. She said, you know, who are you? I said, well, I'm not in the union. I've just been in LA for 2 weeks and I don't have an agent. And, you know, and she said, well, come down and see me. And I saw her. She said, oh, you're good. So she took me into the producers the next week. And that was Lily Zanuck, who the big Zanuck family. And I wound up getting the part. So the next week, I'm like casting this big movie with Dana Carvey and blah, blah, blah. It's a big list of names and whatnot. That's where I got my first agent, got my first manager, and I've been doing it ever since. So it's kind of like, you know, I kept the stupid hat on, you know, and just keep stumbling uphill. You know, it keeps working. It keeps working.
Yeah, you were in some. So you were in Face Off, I remember, and Batman. I thought Barbershop 2, and I loved Dancing at the Blue Iguana. That was one of my favorite films, and you're there running a strip club, which seemed like perfect type.
And we improvised that whole movie. We took 8 months, all the actors in there. All we had was a title when we started, and each of us created our character, and we would just rehearse these little vignettes in this theater over in Hollywood, and we created the script. And they took all of these little improvisations and put it together, and we made this movie. You know, again, it was one of those things that bonded for life. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because not many people bring that one up, you know.
Some of the television you've done has been pretty iconic. I know, you know, that Crazy Happy Town. I love that. I'm afraid the public didn't like it as much as I did. I mean, you know, you were in The Wire, you were in Prison Break, Ballers with The Rock. I mean, you've had some wonderful opportunities. And I mean, come on, The Wire has got to be the best television series ever, right?
Well, it was. Yeah, you know, I mean, we used to say on The Wire that we felt like we were pound for pound one of the best casts on TV. You know, there was so much talent there, and we were performing under the radar. We shot in Baltimore. We weren't connected with the studios. David Simon and Ed Burns just really held to their vision. So they didn't have anybody trying to make it turn into a cop show. And we had a ball as a cast. It was a great cast. I mean, we were friends. So we would go see each other, you know, on set while the other people were performing big scenes. And 2 o'clock in the morning, see people show up with a cup of coffee and, you know, hang out to watch, just cutting up, chopping it up behind the monitors, and all to make this show that we knew we were having a good time on, and we knew the writing was really special. And, you know, then the public said, this is one of the greatest things we've seen. You know, I think Bunny Colvin, to me, is my absolute favorite character ever. And he has become iconic. And people have told me that, but, you know, I kind of feel that he's risen to that.
Transformative. It was a transformative way to look at cops, politics, the drug industry, and a way that urban life kind of kept finding a way forward, no matter what bad thing happens, what the misgivings were. You got to keep going. You got to keep pushing forward. And Bunny Colvin's sense of that place of his trying to get away from the same old system of cops and robbers was, I think, in many ways, a plea for something better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that whole thing of reform, in the first year, in season 3, of trying to reform the police system that had just been reduced to numbers, just counting numbers and all, trying to make the numbers good so you could secure funding. It became this game, and this guy just said, you know what? This is not what we're here for. We're here for people. And tried to steer it back in a way, in a crazy, radical, nut job kind of way, creating this place called Amsterdam that was gonna absorb all of the darkness in a community and keep it in a little eggshell so people could leave normal. A lady could go walk down the street or could water her plants. And then the system came down. Reform doesn't work. The system came down and chopped him off. And then he's back to being a security guard, And so that it was that kind. It was almost Shakespearean in that way, in the way that we see the tragedy of trying to do the right thing,
Well, speaking of Shakespearean tragedies, I mean, we're in the moment, aren't we? I mean, this is, I think, as a hillbilly, you see everything through a certain lens, but I always think about Mother Jones saying, there's no peace in West Virginia because there's no justice in West Virginia. And you're looking at what happened with George Floyd, and you're looking at what people have been pleading for patiently, and all of a sudden you see a time when there's no peace, directly because there's no justice. And how do we get here, and but more importantly, what can we do to create a peace that's sustainable?
Well, there's so many layers of irony in this moment, that we go to bed on a Monday looking at our phone and just scrolling through whatever, Twitter or some crap on social media. And the next morning we scroll and we see one of the most dramatic things that just pierced everybody. And that was the breath being squeezed out of this big man, George Floyd, by a representative, an enforcer of the law. And for 8 minutes, we watched that, and we watched a whole system, in a sense, as we're seeing now, a whole system died that moment. Not to minimize George's death, but everybody realized this can't go on. We can't keep doing this to these people. And then these people became the human heart, human beings, and it became a human rights issue. And justice blew up, and now it's every city across the world. We're seeing, people taking this moment of transformation.
This work, I think what we were trying to do with the Media and Democracy in '83, what a lot of us have been trying to do is to say, people are people, that rich, poor, urban, rural, black, white, brown, people are connected, and that's what you got to work from. And then the images, and this guy, not only saying he can't breathe, but asking for forgiveness, calling out for his mother, his mom. It's like, this is where we all came in, right? This is what connects us all. This is where we understand what's decent and how we have to behave. And if we ignore those human pleas, then
That's it.
who are we?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, and it became people for years. And when I say people, I mean the general society. Black people have been saying, that's racist. This is racism. And people are saying, oh, I don't want to hear it. You know, y'all blah, 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 blah. It's a race card, blah, blah, blah. But people finally got it that we weren't being shot in the dark on that day. And then a story, and then you kind of read about it, and we saw it in our face that that's how that the casualness of putting your hands in your pocket while you're just committing this murder, that said it all. And we realized, everybody realized, you know what, I get it now. And so the whole phrase white privilege, people didn't realize what it's like when I go out, get in my car, and I see a cop car coming behind me, I'm in a chill. You know, that's not something everybody understood, you know, and I think that's the thing that's been brought home is that, oh, this is what y'all been living under all this time. This is what the system of racism is. You know, when you call and you give your name for a job and you have a black name or you have a black accent, and so your resume gets shoved off to the side, you know, all of these things that have been on our back. And I think finally we have people who, everybody is saying, you know what, this isn't the society we want. And it's I can't even tell you how incredible this moment is.